Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Creative VZ podcast. And today we're going to talk a little bit about some game ideas, in particular when we are teaching territorial invasion games. So over here is a diagram which you should be familiar with. So for those of us who have read about ecological dynamics or constraints-led approach, this would be something familiar for you guys. But today we're just going to focus on two aspects. So one is the importance of understanding the interactions between the performer, task, and the environment, and how this will give rise to a set of possible behavior that will emerge from those interactions. All right. Okay, so if you have read the book constraints-led approach, and you would be familiar with this environment design principles. So today we're just going to focus on the first one, which is constraining to afford. So basically, we are talking about designing in constraints to offer, encourage, invite learners to explore the opportunities for action related to the lesson objective or session intention. Okay, so in particular, before we go through some possible or game ideas, I would say, it's important to understand that affordances can reside within a spectrum. So on one end, on the left, the game design could be overly constrained to the extent that there's very little affordance. Only one or two particular behavior is possible, and I will say uh, the the learning tasks tend to be highly structured kind of practice. We can almost say that these kind of activities are very drill-like, whereby the movements or tactical behaviors or skill execution per se prescribed right from the offset. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, you have free play of sorts, whereby any kind of movement, almost any kind of movement is possible. So a lot of emphasis on discovery, exploratory. So uh, I think in PE, it's probably good to strive somewhere in between, whereby the learning task is not overly constrained. Neither is it too loose, where to the extent that it's hard to predict uh, the kind of learning or the kind of behavior that will emerge from those activities. So with that said, the first aspect that I'm going to go through today is the possibility of manipulating playing area. So understanding the shapes and zoning as a way of constraining to afford. So let me illustrate this through a few examples. So typically we have a rectangular playing space. We have one goal on each end. So one popular way of constraining to afford, in particular to prevent crowding within the central playing area. Some of us place two goalposts on each end line, so one on each corner, and therefore now when the left side of the goal is crowded, then the students naturally will look for opportunity to attack on the right side, for example. There's also that possibility whereby we remove the goalpost altogether and we'll use ideas from games such as Ultimate Frisbee. We have a scoring zone instead, or scoring line. All right, so this is possible as well. We can also add more zones to afford other creative tactical solutions to emerge. For example, we can have a scoring zone whereby only within that zone, players can actually attempt a shot on goal. So this will deter certain kind of behaviors, for example, long distance shooting. So for some of our learners, this could be really useful to scaffold their learning. We can also combine this idea with the multiple goalpost idea. So we have 4 goalposts altogether, and the shooting zone. We can also borrow zoning strategies such as in netball, we have thirds. So we can divide the playing area into 3 thirds, and then you can apply additional rules to encourage other kind of tactical solution. All right. So for instance, you can create 2v1 situation in front of the goal, whereby only 2 attackers can be in the attacking third, and only 1 defender can play within the defensive third, and therefore forcefully creating that 2v1 situation every time a team is attacking towards the goal. Other ideas could be having a narrow zone in the middle of the field to encourage teams to play a pass to the midfield before planning their attack. You can also have a square within a rectangle playing space. So the square could be a no man's zone, whereby players are forced to launch their attack from the sides, or you can have a midfield player who plays a pivot, whereby he or she is fixed within that square, and then maybe teams must play the ball to this midfield player before a goal can be scored, things like that. We can also have a narrow aisle on the flanks, on the wings, whereby maybe we have 1v1 situation on the left and 1v1 situation on the right, and a more fluid game situation in the middle. Then the teacher can maybe impose differentiated scoring, for example. So every time a goal is scored by playing the ball to the sides, then that goal will be worth 2 points. Whereas a goal that is scored without utilizing the player at the sides, then that will be worth 1 point. Things like that. Okay, so we can also go a little bit crazy. So we can have a diamond within a rectangle space. We can divide the rectangle space into quarters, or we can have irregular kind of zoning, as per what you see on the third diagram here. So there are really many possibilities. So for example, in the last diagram here, maybe this will minimize the crowding in the middle, in the central part of the field, and this will possibly encourage switching of play as well. And once the players are in the attacking zone, then they will have to try to bring the ball back to the middle where the goal post is situated. The last part of this presentation sharing for today, I would say, is the possibility of manipulating the placement of the goals. It's for understanding how placement of goal or the goals as a way of constraining to afford. So typically the goal post is situated on the end line, but what if we push the goal post inwards, similar to the game of floorball? In this way, the players can actually play behind the goal post. So this will bring about different kind of tactical solution. Another possibility is to actually invert the placement of the goalpost altogether. So this time around, the goalposts are within the playing space itself and facing outwards. And again, this will bring about other kind of movement behaviors. And I will say the last example is the possibility of placing the goalpost at the side. So in this case, on the right side of the attacking direction. Okay, so this will again bring a different kind of technical solution to emerge. Okay, so these are just some very raw ideas. I'm sure you guys can come up with even more ideas. So feel free to comment other game ideas that you have tried and find successful to aid students learning. Till next time, take care. See you. Bye-bye.